Nathan and
I'm Zach.
This is Zach, and we both have Crohn's disease, and that's why we're delving into making these videos.
Straight into it.
Yeah.
So I was actively diagnosed with Crohn's disease in December of 2019. I was 22 years old at the time. I was working in a hospital as a medical assistant, and at that time, this disease pretty much brought me to my knees and led me to Nate over here, and which is why we're bringing these videos up to you guys to see if this will help anybody so forth one day.
I was diagnosed in August 2015. I was 18, 19, and
We met through Crohn's therapy group, right?
Yep, we went through a Crohn's therapy group that was being done over Zoom due to COVID-19, and he actually mentioned when I was talking, we never met each other beforehand, that hey, you need someone to talk to other than being on this group with 12 different people. I'm here. He put his number on the chat on Zoom, and I ended up texting him, I'm pretty sure that night, and we've met about 4 or 5 times.
Yeah,
since.
4 or 5 times now, and I feel that not only we've really connected on the fact of this disease, and our therapy group has really brought us together, and we feel more than ever that it's the best time to address this disease and what people who are actively going through it are going through. So I guess the first stage of that is what are your physical symptoms for Crohn's disease?
Right now, my symptoms are the usual for Crohn's, which everyone who has Crohn's would understand that. Every morning is usually 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours of constant on the toilet, in the bathroom, the nausea, and after that, during the day, I usually tend to have mild to moderate abdominal pain, and if I don't take Imodium, I'm using the bathroom constantly all day, so which is considered active Crohn's disease.
So for me, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in December of 2019, right before the COVID pandemic. I've been actively taking medications, one of which is Humira, which I was slowly introduced to due to the diagnosis, and multiple other medications along the way, which have led us to this date now, which is in, what are we, in the end of July?
Yep.
End of July.
7/26.
And I've been going through that. My physical disease, or symptoms of physical, would be, just as Nate described as well, abdominal pain, leakage of the anus. Unfortunately, there can also be bleeding along the lines of constant stomach upset. To really sum it up, I feel like really good for people who don't know, I feel like Crohn's disease could really be summed up as a long permanent food poisoning. I feel like that's really sums Crohn's disease up in my time of less than 1 year of diagnosis. And it's been hard. It's been really hard.
And you said you were diagnosed 19.
I was diagnosed this year, 2019.
What was your age?
I was 22 when this happened.
So he was a little bit older than me. I was diagnosed in August of 2015. I was able to get through high school and graduate without dealing with Crohn's, which I know a lot of people have dealt with that and are currently dealing with that. I was between 18 and 19, so similar age set, and trying to get out in the world and figure out what you're going to do.
So just as you're starting,
as you're starting, when
boom, hits like a truck.
People are figuring out what college you're going to, military, whatever. So I got diagnosed with Crohn's then in the summer of 2015, and that's when my whole life changed, and I can guarantee you your whole life kind of, all your ideas and what you wanted to do kind of went out the window or put on hold.
It's an act of, while trying to move forward with my life and going to college and so forth, it just really hits, and it puts everything at pause. And when I mean everything, it puts your health, it puts your friends, it puts your job, everything at pause, which is what I went through when we met.
And the one thing too we want to touch on is I tried to think back to my senior year in high school of if I noticed any symptoms of Crohn's or something was wrong, because the doctors, they asked me that. I'm not sure if they asked you that, if you noticed anything.
They asked multiple things. They really didn't know what was going on. I think that's what makes this whole process really difficult.
Yeah, him and I have very similar diagnosis stories too. He wasn't diagnosed right away or the right way, and I'm in the same boat as that too. And I think a lot of people fall into that exact same boat where the doctors
aren't really sure what's going on.
They aren't sure what's going on. It could be a number of things because our symptoms aren't just Crohn's. Our symptoms can go from having pancreatic cancer, they're really similar to that, just all over the whole board. So then you start diving into, okay, the first thing they wanted me to do was endoscopy and colonoscopy, which was scary for me because I was a healthy person, sports, I was going to go in the military.
Fit, physically fit, full 9 yards.
He was the same.
Not a pill to take.
Yeah, not a pill, not didn't even take vitamins. And then they're telling me, yeah, you're going to be put to sleep. I've never been put to sleep in my entire life. You?
For me, I was very healthy growing up. Was very fortunate throughout my life to not have any mental or physical disease of any sort. Mm-hmm. And then once the ongoing process of diagnosing Crohn's happened, it was an in and out of ER visits. It was CAT scan, ultrasounds, endoscopies, all out within back-to-back periods of time. And in that back-to-back period of time is also pretty much the other doctors who I was having talk to me too, which they did not know what was going on. And that's what also makes this process so difficult is that so many people and professionals too really struggle with diagnosing with Crohn's, and it really puts the patient through a loop, and it really can cause some mental strain.
A lot of times too, I've seen in my situation and his and others, we have both have friends that are Crohn's, colitis, and everyone says the same thing is the whole pain management too. When you're going through all this, it's crippling pain that I've never experienced before in my life.
Brings you to your knees.
Yeah,
brings you to your knees.
I worked out 3 times a day, weightlifter. Didn't have pains like that before. Made me lay down in the middle of my bedroom floor, just in crippling pain. Like women say, they have said that giving birth is easier than dealing with Crohn's. You know, and I believe it. I don't know what it's like to give birth, but they say it's easier than giving. Birth is easier than having Crohn's, and the pains that Crohn's gives you. And I guess to carry on from that, after I went to my first GI doctor, then they were able to diagnose me, unlike his story. They said, you have Crohn's. And to me, and I know he's going to have a similar response to this, I was like, okay, I'm going to go home. I'm going to take 2 blue pills. I don't know why. I thought blue pills.
Blue pills.
2 blue pills.
Some Matrix.
And I'm going to be okay. And I'm going to go in the military then next summer. That's what was my plan.
Unfortunately, as we both know, it doesn't work out to that plan. It never does, unfortunately.
And when you finally got diagnosed, what was your thoughts?
So for at the doctor's office, it took me a good day or 2 to actually fully confine to the fact that this was permanent and this was a chronic illness that there is no cure for actively and that there's only treatments. So then they immediately bombard you with treatments, and I was already still processing the thought of an illness that I can't take a pill, and I'm now stuck in the current condition that I am, which is what they call an active flare for Crohn's disease. And the mental part of it really starts to really dig deep at you, even if you're not ready if you haven't mentally accepted the fact that you are now chronically ill, you still have to move on with treatment and so forth. And it really puts you in a not the best spot mentally.
And I noticed too with you were able to not be able to come to terms with your disease, but be able to understand it. He has a healthcare background. I don't. So it took a good year for me to realize that I was not going to be my normal self.
It takes time.
I think it did make it easier, like I said, that he understood, I guess, more of the medical terms. He probably knew the disease more than I did. The only thing I knew about Crohn's was we actually have 2 family friends that had it and knew it was horrible.
And that's the thing about Crohn's disease is I feel that you hear, it's always you hear how bad it is, but no one really ever gets to see it as well too. That's what also makes it so difficult in being an invisible illness. People don't actively talk about these things either. So it's something that you go about and you're finally diagnosed with Crohn's disease, but it's hard to relate to people when one, it's an invisible illness that HIPAA one will not talk about, or two, just finding someone to connect with that also is familiar with what you're going through.
All right, so now we're gonna get into talking about the emotions and mental state that comes with Crohn's from being diagnosed where we personally are right now.
Heavy hitter.
So he's in it 6 months. I'm in it 5 years. There's going to be a lot of similarities and probably almost word for word, but there is probably going to be some differences. With me personally, my emotions started getting crazy after being diagnosed. Like I said, it took about a year for everything to really hit home with me. But then I started getting just my anger escalated with everything. Like anything could set me off. If
Smallest thing.
someone moves or drinks my water bottle out of the fridge, it's like that ruined my morning. Or, you know,
the smallest thing would just set you
someone
off.
takes
Something that should be able to dismiss.
And it would ruin my day personally, and my anger, like, you know. And I would never obviously physically hurt someone, but it just would. My anger just escalated to the point where it's like I cut myself off from pretty much everyone then because I didn't want to hurt anyone, and not physically, but I didn't want to hurt their feelings either. Because when you get mad, you know, you tend to say stuff that isn't nice and
Stupid stuff.
yeah, and you say a lot of hateful things that you don't mean in the moment. And going into that created a lot of problems with, I guess I'll start with people our age, never heard of Crohn's. They don't know what it is. So the ongoing battle was, all right, we're going to go do this. We're going to go to this restaurant. We're going to go to the movies. We're going to go do whatever. And it would take me, I'd be an hour late all the time. Or they'd be at my house waiting for me in my living room. And I was like, fine. And then finally I just like, fine, just go without me. I don't even care. When I really did care. And I just then was stuck in my room for
You felt like you were weighing them down almost.
Yep. So I was like, fine, whatever. Do what you want. I'm me. I'll do me then. And that's what I did for a long time. And then going into, you know, and also with that, I learned too who my real friends were in life. And not just friends who hang out with family, friends, all that. And a lot of them, honestly, none of it was real in my situation. You know, people, you just got to think about it. You don't want to be with someone who is always going to make you late, can't do all the same things you can do, can't eat the same stuff that they could eat a month ago, and now all of a sudden they can't. People just can't understand that.
They don't adapt, one would say. It's really hard to find people who are comforting when something like this, especially at our age too, because it's such an early thing to process. And most friends or people our age that we hang out with, it's just something that they haven't had to go through yet. And it really can bring out, I don't want to say the worst, but it can bring out the worst in people when you really hit that low point.
And the biggest thing too, we're going to probably hit on is, the biggest thing is understanding. And understanding Crohn's disease and understanding how a person feels. It's sad to say, but it's the truth. No one is going to understand how you feel and what's going through your brain when you're sitting waiting for your operation to come, and it's your 6th operation for Crohn's. No one's going to be sitting there when you had a bad infusion and understand that, except for the person like how he understands it because he has Crohn's. Even though he hasn't been in that position yet, he gets Crohn's, and he's been in scary situations also. So the understanding is the biggest part, where I had to tell myself, okay, friends and my family, which is most important, your family, for the most part, they aren't going to understand what you're going through. And that creates so much issues. everyone feels wronged in that situation. You feel like you're being wronged. So
you're going to take that frustration out on other people, and it's unfortunately going to be the ones closest
and
to
in
you.
my position, it all revolved around anger from everyone's side. Mom, dad, it's all that. And no one was doing it on purpose.
It's just the way things work.
It just was, why are you acting like this? And it's like, well, if you would understand, you would know why I'm mad every day and say the things I say. But
waking up to that pain, people can't understand. It puts you just immediately in a bad mood. You're just immediately in a bad mood. The smallest things, as you said earlier, that you easily could dismiss when you're level-headed, you're not in pain. Anyone I think can understand the fact that when you're going through pain, you're immediately frustrated, and it's hard for people to understand when you're always in pain. It's kind of you're always frustrated.
That and too, we look fairly normal and healthy.
Yeah, it's an invisible illness.
So I always thought too it was like a closet disease. Like you never heard of it 20, 30 years ago, but it did exist. It's
and now
nothing
it's
new.
More prominent than ever.
Yeah. So that's another thing too I get from family, friends, and people I don't even know, or friends that I haven't seen I've been out of high school for 5 years. They'll be like, oh, wow, this is McKeever, you look great. You aren't overweight again, like you used to be in high school. Or you weren't this way, And I always just, I used to get upset about that. And now I'm just like, yeah, I just go with it. Like, yeah, you look good, lost weight and all that.
Would you say it's easier?
I would say it's easier. You just have to go with it, and it's like, because like I said, they'll never
understand. So trying to tell every little minute detail for them to understand, they just can't go through it. I think it's just a human thing. It's just if you really haven't gone through it, you can never fully understand.
That, and the biggest thing too is it's not that people don't want to understand it. Like I have a very, and he's going to touch on his side, but my side grew up in a very Christian loving home. So it's not that my family didn't want to be there for me and didn't want to understand me. They just couldn't understand it, and they still can't to this day.
They don't get you, and look, they don't get like how I get it. I mean, anything else to add into that?
Other than that, it's difficult, and I've gotten through it, and it is an ongoing battle though. The more procedures I have, and I'll touch on it too with different complications I've had with my infusions as of lately, and my anger's been really high from that in the last week, and it's created fights and issues over it. So
tensions are high.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things where we're going to continuously deal with that. So he can take on his part of what it did to him.
So for mine, I'll take the floor with, for my issues, it's really hard for the first 6 months to, I guess, just grasp the fact that you're now ill. Mm-hmm. And then moving on to the fact of friends and relationships and family, I mean, you hit every ballpark right there on the nail with it. It's very difficult for people to understand when they're not going through things. For me, in my story, it was a process of now that I'm now on treatment and medications for Crohn's disease, I go through these emotional mood swings of anger, frustration. It'll just start immediately in the beginning of the day. When my symptoms start to flare up as soon as I wake up, I'm immediately on the toilet for the first 2 hours of the day. And that will set anybody into a bad mood. And the good news is I do have my family, to which they are very understanding in that regard. And I think yours are as well. I think they just, for the frustrations and lashing out, because when you get out of that door, it's not always relief. You're still feeling bad. And the whole world's still going on around you, but yet you're focused on your pain, and that can really bring out the traumas and the real raw feelings, which is something that I've been struggling with for the first 6 months for me. I guess I could start it as for my family and friends. I find for me personally, it's not only difficult to relate to other people now with the diagnosis of Crohn's disease, but it's also the fact of understanding and finding people who can really connect to. It's what you said earlier, going out and trying to make things work. With plans, you would set a plan in motion, go to the bar, catch a couple beers or something, maybe get some food, and you're in the back, and unfortunately you're still hanging back because you're still on the toilet. And it's hard bringing these emotions to friends, and frustrations can happen. Some of them will cut you off. Some of them just don't understand, and that's something that I'm going through of friends who not necessarily aren't there. It's just they can't understand, and it makes one feel really isolated and alone. And I'm not sure if you can relate to that, of the isolation and the aloneness, but it all goes hand in hand. It really does.
Yeah, one of my first thing, which is I think very common in people our age, and this is one thing that I don't think it just affects males who are experiencing not even Crohn's, but a chronic illness that is unfortunately not going to get better unless there's a cure. My first thing was, to shut down, close my walls up, because I wasn't getting anywhere with anyone. In reality, you weren't going to.
Nope.
So you have to just accept it. That's part of accepting it.
You got to buckle down.
So, my first one was just shutting down, and I wouldn't answer my phone for days for people. So then they just took it as, oh, he's being a jerk and doesn't want to do anything with us. And honestly, I just took that then. And it's been like that ever since. I was like, they can think what they want because they're never going to understand it. So it's a waste of my time saying it. And I'm not saying that's right and that's not what you should do in your situation. But that's how I dealt with it. It was less talking I had to do and less frustration. And I guarantee if I were to talk to them again today, they'd probably say, why are you being a jerk then? And it would just be another thing, hey, there's really nothing to explain about it.
And I think it's that understanding, and I think the word here is perspective. It's because people don't have that perspective or understanding of the disease and what we go through actively every day, it pushes strain on friendships, family relationships. It really brings those to the surface, and it can lead to ending friendships and finding out who is your real friends when the thick and thin happen.
And sometimes then you end up meeting someone who, like when him and I
like
met,
this guy.
It felt like we were best friends for years.
We just immediately it was like something from the Notebook, dude. Like it just we clicked.
And I was comfortable like that. I still am now, and it's weird, but I try not to even think about it. I'm not gonna break it down. It's nothing to break down or think about. It's like, hey, we know why we connected like that, and that's why we hope that we can connect with other people over this, especially with this pandemic and all that. We don't know where this is going to go from a week from now, day to now, but we can still do this and hopefully.
And it's us trying. Yeah. I think it's also the fact that you didn't have a good morning. No. I didn't have a good morning. Yet it's 3:30 in the afternoon and we're still here actively shooting because it's just pushing forward and getting that momentum to just go forward with things, even when things get pretty dark.
And the biggest thing too, I try to tell myself, and I think you're doing it also, is, even today, and I hate saying it, I always try to, my brain as a human, you know that you're going to have a bad day, or you might have to use the bathroom, all this stuff that you don't want to happen. So you try to tell yourself, I'm just going to ask them if we can do it the next day. And I guarantee, that was a thought I had last night. Because I had a really bad problem with my infusion Thursday, and I was in the bathroom from 3 a.m. till the whole day yesterday. And I was like, I'm just going to ask him to do it the next day. I'm like, no, I got to do it now. This is what makes me feel better. And I feel 100% better right now. And I'm glad I didn't make it move on, because then I'd just be sitting alone at home thinking about
self-isolation,
bothering me.
And it just slowly kind of consumes you and takes over, and then you look at yourself and you don't know where you are. You're lost, and there's nothing. I think we've both been there at this point, and I think that's why this is happening.
And it's also too, I think it will open a lot for. I'm a person who I never did good with counselors. To me, it was a waste of time and a waste of money. It never worked for me. I always said I'll listen to someone who's been in my shoes.
And I think that's, going forward, is for anybody who's out there who's struggling, it's finding someone who you can connect with who also gets that. While I might not be on the same level, I still have that basic understanding, because you are a lot further of Crohn's disease than I am. But it's finding that someone who gets it and who is also going through it too.
Yeah, and that's why we do want to try to open this up too. And it's not going to be an everyday thing, but open it up to where, someone who wants to talk to both of us, or just put out how we put out our story.
Getting it out there.
They're welcome to do it. I will put an email up on here to contact us, and then all the information for the Zoom and IDs, all that. And if someone's just interested in doing it, you'll just have to email us and get back to you as soon as possible. And I think it's a very good
Therapeutic.
Therapeutic. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen.
So,
Do you have anything else to add to it?
to that part, no. So,
I feel like if I could go off on one more thing, it's it's taking that leap. I feel like if there's anything from this too, it's taking that leap. Even if you're being a little vulnerable and getting out there and actually telling someone your story and what's actively happening with you, and it's vulnerable. And sometimes you got to take that leap. And if you take that leap, sometimes it can lead to a friendship.
the last thing too, I do want to say, and he'll agree with this, is again, we aren't doctors, so we don't know everything.
We are not medical professionals. We are not licensed in our state. This is just two bros coming together, putting ourselves out there.
And it can be really helpful. And this is more helpful than going on the Facebook, Instagram, groups where you just type something up. And I have never even put my foot in that door because I knew. You read all these comments and everyone always wants to put the worst situation up there. And I actually, I used to look up on a page on Facebook, I think, before I had to go get my cetons put in. And everyone had these horror stories of how painful it was and all this. And I went into there with anxiety and panic attacks, and they had to dope me up to go in. And in reality, I dealt with it, and the pain wasn't anything crazy because I have a high pain tolerance from dealing with Crohn's.
For over 5 years.
And I was like, I shouldn't even have read that. And a lot of it is. It's just a lot of people who...
Negativity.
They're stuck at home, trapped with a disease like this. And a lot of times they do want a person wants to bring other people down and make them feel afraid too.
Yeah, I feel like when you, especially going through something like this, the last thing you want to say is, "Oh, you're going to go through a great deal of pain."
Yeah.
Like, what? No. You be there for each other. You sit down. You actually talk to them. Say how's their day going, and really mean it. And I think if you can go through life with that genuine attitude, you'll be surprised with how many positive things can come out of it.
And we gotta see how people react to this too. And if you guys like it,
Let
show
us
us that you
Let us
like it.
leave a like, comment.
Being able to talk about all our problems with Crohn's and
Therapeutic, and it's also letting other people out there who don't know us or who are not in our state. You're not alone, and it's really difficult to reach out. But if you can do it, good things can come. And yeah.